Who is goalkeeper on bench? I've gone for Steele. Basically, because, what's his name? Because my 4.5 mil forward is also a Watford player, I didn't want to go for the cycling GK Ben Foster, because then I'd only ever have the ability of using one Watford player. So I don't recommend going for both, what's this fraud's name? Perica. I wouldn't go for Perica and Foster, because let's say Watford somehow become a really good team that everyone wants cheap players from, like Saar or a 4.5 mil defender. You will only be able to afford one, and I wouldn't want to lock myself into that from Game Week 1 where we know nothing about any of the teams, really. What's the best formation in your opinion, and why? I think the best two formations are 3-5-2 and 3-4-3. The reason I've gone for 3-5-2 is because at the 6 or 6.5 mil mark, I think the midfielders offer more value than attackers. Tony's unproven in the Prem. I think he's a great option. He was in my team up until 10 minutes ago. But the likes of Rafinha will offer better value than Tony in the long run. Is Mope a good shout? No, because Welbeck is back around September 8th, meaning you'll only get 2 or 3 games out of Mope, after which he might be rotated with Welbeck. Why Benrahma? Well, Benrahma and Harvey Barnes both had around 0.37, 0.38 XGI per 90 last season, so they're very similar in that regard. And I went through and I looked at their first 6 fixtures, and I assigned a number from 1 to 20 based on the ranking of the defenses that they're facing. And so Leicester's attack, based on the defenses they're facing, is 58. So if you add, let's say they're playing Wolves, who are the 7th best defense based on XG, they get a 7. Let's say they're facing West Ham, who are the 10th best defense based on XG conceded, they get a 10. I added all of those numbers for the first 6, and you end up with 58 for Harvey Barnes, whereas you get 73 for Benrahma. So Benrahma's got the better fixtures from an attacking perspective. So, and he's $1 million cheaper. And Harvey Barnes, today Brendan Rodgers said he might not play the full 90. He doesn't have that fitness level yet. So I'm hesitant to go for someone who we know can't play the full 90, especially when you never know, Leicester could change their formation, play 2 up front, and suddenly Harvey Barnes is on the bench. Whereas I don't see West Ham not starting Benrahma, at least for the first few fixtures. And then look, if Benrahma doesn't play well, I'll have to get $1 million by going, for example, I could literally do the transfer of Wilson to Tony and Benrahma up to Harvey Barnes if I need to, or Benrahma up to Buendia. It's not too bad. Balogun is starting for Arsenal. What's the source for that? And even if he is, you're not going to wildcard after game week 1, so it's not worth going for him. Do I start ESR or was that Rafinha? I'd probably start Smith Rowe. Is this your final team? No, I'm still considering a couple things. Okay, first of all, I'm considering going Wilson to Tony and Benrahma to Harvey Barnes, and I'm considering doing that, but then also doing Morris to someone like Greenwood, and then upgrading Wilson to Ings. But I don't know yet. I'm struggling. Right now, I'm quite happy with this team, the way it is. Why have Ben White and have him on the bench? He's got 2 hard fixtures after today. Basically, I'm not going to force him to play because, first of all, I don't see Arsenal keeping a clean sheet today against Brentford. We're missing Gabriel, we're missing Partey, we're missing 2 of our key attackers who haven't been good recently, but they're still 2 key players. I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet. But also, which of my defenders would you bench for Ben White? None of them, right? So I don't see the argument for playing Ben White today. I don't think it's an issue that I'm not going to play him in the first 3 games, because after that I will play him. He has 2 really good fixtures. I think he plays Burnley and Norwich, right? Something really good like that. Why does it say deadline 7:30? Because I am located in Italy right now, so I'm way ahead. Move, please. Sorry, I'll move. Buendia or Benrahma? I would go for Buendia. Yeah, I'd probably go for Buendia. For the first three at least. It's been almost a month, yeah. It's been a long time since I did one of these streams. It's been a long time. I was on holiday for a lot of it. It was quite good. Lukaku or Bruno after game week 6? Probably Lukaku. I'm thinking of wildcarding after game week 6, which is why I keep looking at the first 6 fixtures. I'm thinking of wildcarding to a double Chelsea defence, double City defence, De Bruyne and Lukaku. Opinions on James Rodriguez? He's not settled at Everton. I wouldn't go for him. Why no Ings? I can't afford him. If anyone has a creative way of fitting Ings into my team, I'm all ears, but I can't think of one. Have you got money left over? No, I do not. Pepe a good option? He's really not. Believe me, as an Arsenal fan, he's not a good fantasy option. His underlying numbers weren't that good last season. I wouldn't go for him. Kane only has a 75% chance of playing. Should I transfer? Yeah, I wouldn't go for Kane right now, especially because it looks like Kane is going to go to City, which means that, think about it, let's say he goes on Wednesday, right? He signs for City on Wednesday. He's going to have one training session before next weekend. He's not going to play next weekend. And he probably won't play today if Tottenham are about to sell, not today, on Sunday if Tottenham are about to sell him. So I wouldn't go for Kane. Will you show us your final team? Yes, I'll show you whatever team I lock in, I promise. I'll show you. Antonio or Iheanacho? Antonio for sure. Iheanacho's probably not going to start. Matty Cash, no, I wouldn't go for him. Where do you live? London and the US, depending on what time of the year. Ferran Torres, I don't think he's nailed on to start. He'll be sharing minutes with Gabriel Jesus and Riyad Mahrez, so I wouldn't go for him. White or Ayling? Ben White for me. Arsenal are the far better defense, and basically, if you already have for example, a Brighton defender, my fixtures aren't loading, but basically, I think Ben White's fixtures are better after game week 3, and before game week 3, are going to be playing Trent, Tsimikas, and Shaw. Who's your 5th defender? I've got Ben White, Veltman, Tsimikas, Shaw, and Trent. No justification for Benrahma over others in his price bracket. Well, Benrahma's underlying numbers are as good, if not better, than everyone else in his price bracket. And he had West Ham, from an offensive point of view, probably have the best fixtures out of other people in the same price point. So, for example, Ismail Assar has worse fixtures. Buendia over 6 fixtures has worse fixtures. Rafinha has worse fixtures, and they already have Rafinha. So I'm not sure who you take over him. You could say Harvey Barnes, but Barnes' fixtures aren't that good, and he's not nailed on to play the full 90, which I guess Benrahma isn't either. But the extra million from Benrahma over Harvey Barnes lets me go for Wilson over Ivan Toney. And Wilson is more proven in the Prem. Willock coming in will improve their attack. And Newcastle's attack wasn't actually that bad in the second half of the season. Do you have the voice of a narrator? I really don't. I don't. Tony or Ings? Definitely Ings. Best striker for 7.5 mil? Antonio. Antonio had the best underlying numbers of all the strikers in the game last season, including Harry Kane, including everyone. I would take Antonio even if he was 8 mil, 8.5 mil. So, for what it's worth, Antonio. Why not Havertz over Mahrez? Well, because Havertz won't play up front once Lukaku starts being in Chelsea's starting 11, right? And then Havertz in midfield won't get too many fantasy points. So, I wouldn't recommend going for Havertz. Wilson is the move. Yeah. Wait, do you guys know how I do a poll in the chat? I'm trying to figure that out. Basically, tell me, put 1 in the chat for Benrahma and Wilson, and put 2 in the chat for Harvey Barnes and Toney. So 1 for Benrahma and Wilson, 2 for Barnes and Toney. Let me know. Put it in the chat. 2, 1, 2, 2. White Tsimikas, because of Robertson's injury, Tsimikas is 100% nailed on to start for Liverpool at left back. And from what I've heard, he's quite attacking. Adding on to that, look at Liverpool's fixtures. They play Norwich. Who do they play after? I'll show you. 1 second. My Wi-Fi isn't loading. But yeah, Liverpool have amazing fixtures, and he's going to definitely play the first 3. You don't have to start him against Chelsea, and there's no other 4 million defender who's going to be starting at all right now. So trust me, go for Tsimikas. Don't even overthink it. Antonio or Ings? Antonio for me. Even if they were the same price, I'd still say Antonio. Is Antonio on pens or is it Rice? Apparently, Benrahma might be on pens because in the preseason game, when they won a penalty, Benrahma went up, picked up the ball, but then Noble asked for the ball. And Rice missed his last penalty for West Ham, so I'm not sure he's going to be taking them. But I also don't know if Antonio's taking penalties. West Ham's penalty taker is still an unknown. Tony or Mope? Tony for me. Show us your team. There you go, you can see. Veltman, Ben White, and Perica are the bench players. You doing the Tony switch? I'm not sure yet. I'll leave it right down to the last second. Get Mane instead of Salah, boys? Please don't, okay? Don't overthink this. Just because Mane has low ownership doesn't mean you should go for him as a differential, okay? Salah takes penalties for Liverpool, and other than penalties, they have almost identical numbers, but Salah had the better season last season, so he's in better form. Even if they were in equally good form, I would still say Salah because he takes penalties. Quite simple. Why did you get rid of Barnes? Because he's not 100% nailed on to start, and even if he starts, Rodgers said he can't play a full 90, which worries me a lot. Why not Zaha over Benrahma? Isn't Zaha 7 mil? I think he is. Yeah, he's an extra mil. I don't have that. I don't have that kind of money. Barnes isn't nailed. If they stay in their 4-2-3-1 formation, he's nailed. But if they change formation, which they could because they have Daka and Iheanacho, who are both quality players on the bench, then he could not start. Why don't you have Greenwood? Because other than the first game week, I don't think Greenwood is nailed on to start any of the first 6 games. So it's not worth spending 7.5 mil on him. I know he's in so many teams, which makes us think that he's going to be starting. But think about it. After the first game week, they're going to have Sancho starting, Bruno starting, that's 2 of the front 4, right? Cavani will be out of quarantine, and Martial is fit, so they can both start up front, and Pogba can start on the left, right? So if Pogba starts on the left, which will happen probably every other game, something like that, then you have Martial, Cavani, Greenwood, Bruno, Sancho, all in the same 3 places. Pepe good? No, he's not a good fantasy option. Thoughts on Harrison? Harrison's great. If you need to free up half a mil, I'm not opposed to going Rafinha to Harrison. I think he's a very underrated asset. Harrison, obviously. His numbers are worse than Rafinha, so the extra 0.5, in my opinion, is worth it, but I'm not opposed to Harrison. Should I downgrade Mahrez to Grealish for Ings? I wouldn't, because De Bruyne is back in training. He hasn't had a full training session, but that could mean that he plays against Norwich, which takes minutes away from either Grealish or Gundogan, right? So I guess you could do it, but I don't think Grealish is nailed on to start. Why no Foster? Because my 4.5 mil striker is from Watford. So then if I go for Foster as well, I only ever have space for 1 Watford player, which I don't want to do. Is Cavani a good signing? No, he's still in quarantine right now. Start ESR or Tsimikas? I would start Tsimikas. ESR or Benrahma for me. Benrahma or Buendia? Probably Buendia, which makes me think maybe I should go for Buendia. But then basically, look, if I go for Buendia over Benrahma, Then I have to go for Tony over Wilson, which leaves me £500,000 left over, and I don't know what to do with that money. It's a tough one. Show team, there you go, you can see it. Son or Mahrez? Mahrez for me. Mahrez has the better opening 2 fixtures, right? So, and I think he's going to start both of them. Mahrez against Norwich will be, I think he can score a hat-trick in that game. So I want Mahrez for that Norwich game. After that, let's say I want to bring in Son, right? Because Son's fixtures become much better. In that case, I could go Callum Wilson down to Ivan Toney, which also lets you avoid that Arsenal game for Toney, and you avoid the City game for Son. You do this in game week 3, right? Mahrez to Son, Wilson to Toney. Easy, right? So go for Mahrez for now, and you can always upgrade him to Son. I say Toney over Wilson. Really? So Wilson had around 0.55 XGI per 90 in the Prem last season, whereas Toney had around, I think, 0.73 XGI per 90 in the Championship. But I think Newcastle's attack is better than Brentford's at the moment, and they're more proven in the Prem. But I don't know. But Brentford are the better footballing team. Kieran, how's it going, mate? Gilmore? Gilmore's there. I don't have Gilmore, but I'm not opposed to him. He takes some set pieces for Norwich. Why not downgrade development to a 4.0 and bring in Ings? Basically, if I go for a 4.0 defender on the bench, then I end up, after game week 3, when Robertson will be back fit, right after the international break, for game week 4, 5, and 6, I'll have no bench at all, because Tsimikas won't play anymore, the 4.0 defender won't play anymore, and Perica won't play, right? So I don't want to be in a situation where I have literally no bench. Do you think Buendia will start? I do think he will start, yeah. But I can't guarantee it. Based on what Dean Smith said, it does sound like he's starting. And Buendia posted on his Instagram, like he's ready to play or something like that. Whenever players do that, they tend to start. But I can't guarantee it. Is Mahrez nailed on for the next few game weeks? I think he's nailed on for game week 1 and 2. After that, it's a bit more tough. But with Foden being injured and De Bruyne being injured, it's hard to see how Mahrez doesn't start. Best 6.5 mil midfielder using Saka right now? I would say top Rafinha, then Buendia, then probably roughly equal Bowen and Saka. I think Bowen is quite underrated for fantasy. His underlying stats are quite good. Why is the Arsenal player not on? Basically, who would you play him for? Maybe you could make the case for Rafinha, but Arsenal are missing some players from their defense. Thomas Partey, Gabriel, and all of my defenders have better fixtures and play in better teams than Ben White. So it's hard for me to argue why Ben White should be starting. Why no Barnes? He's not fit to play the full 90. I'm worried about Leicester changing to a 2-striker formation, and Benrahma's a mil cheaper, and Benrahma has better fixtures. What happened to Toney? Basically, I went Harvey Barnes to Benrahma, leaving me another $1 million, and I didn't know what to do with that money, I'm going to be honest. So I went for Wilson over Toney. But honestly, I might go back. I don't know. I can't decide. Whenever I make a last-minute change, it doesn't go well. So maybe I should go back. Who would you get to replace Barnes, Benrahma, or Buendia? Why would you play Rafinha against Shaw? I'm not opposed to having like an attacker and a defender playing against each other. You're never going to have your whole team return. Just play the odds and hope for the best. Have you got an FPL league? I do. The link is in my... Not the link, but the code is in my bio. I remember your last minute Euro change. Yes, please don't remind me of that. I'm trying to get rid of that from my FPL brain. Okay, we have 24 minutes until the deadline. Do you think Jota will play? No, I don't. Actually, I think he'll play in game week 1, but I can't guarantee he'll start any game after that. I'm copying you the whole year. Please don't. I have a bad feeling about these last minute changes. Why Barnes out? I'm worried about him not being fit, but I might not. Don't take him out yet. This isn't my final team. Basically, I replaced him because Benrahma and him have very similar underlying numbers, and Benrahma has the better fixtures. Is Saka going to start? Yes, definitely. Yeah. When will you show your final team? Probably 2 minutes before the deadline. I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I haven't decided yet. Show your bench. My bench is Veltman, Ben White, and Perica. Is Buendia going to start? I think he will. Yeah. From what Dean Smith said, it sounds like he might start, but I don't know. Something else I'm still considering is going Benrahma to Buendia and Wilson to Tony, and then just having 0.5 mil left over. I don't think it's the end of the world to have a bit of money left over. I could also use that money to do something like Ben White to Tierney, but I think I'm better off just literally keeping the money. Thoughts on Greenwood? Basically, my reasoning for not going for Greenwood is you have to think long-term in fantasy. And basically, I think Greenwood's only nailed on to start game week 1. After that, I don't think he's going to start every game. Ings or Antonio? Antonio. For me, DCL or Ings? Definitely Ings. Sofal or White? Sofal. Thoughts on DCL? I don't think he has a small injury, right? And I don't think Hammers is going to play the first game. So I don't love Everton attackers at the moment. He's probably the third best or fourth best 8 million striker. Probably third. Ings. Antonio is better than all the other 8 mil strikers other than Ings. Bamford, DCL. You say long-term, Liam, but Mahrez and Tsimikas certainly aren't long-term. I have all three. Tsimikas is basically long-term because I don't need to transfer him out ever, basically, right? Mahrez is not long-term, but I have a way out of Mahrez, right? The one I described earlier. I downgrade Wilson to Tony and go Mahrez to Son. I can do that at any time. Iheanacho has 0.7 XGI per 90. It's a bit lower than that from what I've seen, but it's very high, right? It's like 0.68, something like that, right? But he's not going to start, so what's the point? Will Buendia start? Yeah, I think so, yeah. But I can't guarantee it. Willock, for 6 mil, he's not bad, but don't love him as a fantasy option. Is St. Maximin not as a striker? No. What is Neil Maupay XGI? It's actually quite high. It's around 0.6. But he's just not a very good finisher. So I wouldn't go for him. Maddison or Barnes? Definitely Barnes. Maddison is not that good of a fantasy option because he doesn't tend to be the final pass or he doesn't get in the box much. So I wouldn't say he's a good fantasy option. So Barnes is definitely better. Will Sigurdsson play? I hope you're talking about playing football. I don't know, he won't. What's free hit do? It's like a wild card, but it's only for 1 week. So your team goes back to your old team after. Barnes or Antonio? Antonio for me. Is Tierney good? Yeah, he is. But I wouldn't take him as a starter because if you have to start him for the next 3 weeks, you have him against Chelsea and City, which is not ideal. Who's your vice? Bruno. Ings or Son? Son, yeah. But it depends. They're 2 million apart. It depends on what you're going to do with that 2 million. I've got Salah and Mane. What do you think? My issue with having Salah and Mane is you're never going to captain Mane over Salah, and then you miss out on times when you would captain Bruno over Salah. So, for example, in game week 4, you'd probably end up captaining Bruno against Newcastle. But then if you go for Mane instead of Bruno, you're missing out on that captain. Would Lukaku be a long-term investment? Not really. I think, if anything, his price could go down in the next 6 game weeks because of Chelsea's fixtures. They have a good fixture in game week 1, but after that, they're quite poor. So I wouldn't buy him in game week 1. I saw a good question higher up. Where was it? Would you bench Shaw? I wouldn't, no. FPL Liam, can you explain all the chips in the game? I'll make a video explaining them. It's long. I wouldn't use any of them for now, though. Rafinha or Tony? Rafinha for me. Move your head. What's the feeling behind Rafinha this early, brother? XG is nice, but something about fixtures being tough. I don't think his fixtures are actually that bad if you look at them. He's got United, then 2 good fixtures, then another tough fixture, and then a few really good fixtures again. They're mixed. Rafinha is only 6.5 mil, so he lets you invest that money elsewhere. You could make the case for Buendia over Rafinha in the first 3, but I just love Rafinha. I think he's so cheap. And 0.6 XGI per 90 is right up there with Mo Salah without penalties, right? So Salah last season got 0.65 XGI minus, not including his penalties. So imagine you're getting Mo Salah without penalties for almost half the price. Why Wilson over Tony? I just think Wilson's fixtures are better than Tony's, and Wilson is more proven in the Prem. But I still might stick to Harvey Barnes and Tony because whenever I make a last minute change, it doesn't tend to go well. So I think I'll stick to it. But I don't know. I have a bad feeling that Barnes is going to drop 3 2-pointers in a row. I don't know why. I just feel like it's going to happen. But I'll tell you my other fear. It's that I'm an Arsenal fan and I'm afraid of Tony scoring after me taking him out of the team. So I think I'm going to keep Tony. No Fernandes? No, I do have Fernandes. Please go for Bruno, believe me. Go for him. Have you heard what Brazil said? I have not, no. Kane, yes or no? No, not for now. Once it goes to City, yeah, go for Kane. We're all going to go for Kane, aren't we? But no, not now. Ben White or Tsimikas on the bench? Ben White for me. Tsimikas is an attacking threat too. What do you think of Stuart Dallas? He's good. He was good last season because he was a defender, so he got clean sheet points too. But you can't, as a midfielder, I can't back him. He's not going to replicate the same attacking numbers as last season, in my opinion, because he did score a few quite lucky goals. I don't think he's a bad option, but he's not the kind of must-have that he was last season. Ings or Antonio? Antonio for me. Evening, Charlie. How's it going? Sancho or Mahrez? Mahrez for me. Sancho won't start in game week 1, in my opinion. What about Mopé? He won't start once Welbeck is back, so I wouldn't go for him. Is 3 back important? No. If you want to go 4-4-2, I'm not against that. Hudson-Odoi won't start every game. I wouldn't go for him. Martial being overlooked. He's not nailed on to start, so no one's going to go for him. Buendia or Rafinha? Rafinha for me, just slightly. They have very similar fixtures over the next 6. Over the next 3, Buendia is probably slightly better, but over the next 6, it's hard to make the case for Buendia over Rafinha. So, for example, right, Everton shows up as red in the fantasy app, but so I don't think Rafinha is as bad as the app would show you, because he has like 3 out of 4 red fixtures. But honestly, Everton at home is a good fixture in my opinion. And then he has Burnley, which is another good game. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to update my background. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, I've changed my team back. I don't know if it's a good or bad idea. I don't know. I'm not going to make a last minute change. A lot of people are going for Benrahma. What about Greenwood? I like Benrahma a lot. I think for only 6 million, you can't go that wrong, right? Greenwood for 7.5 million, you can go very wrong, because if, for example, in game week 2 suddenly he doesn't start, his price is going to plummet. Beyond that,